From the beginning, Detroit Become Human was promising not to pull any punches. Back in 2013 when Quantic Dream released the Kara tech demo, you knew that whatever this was going to turn into would be something revolutionary. Then, with each subsequent trailer, they kept describing something that would be incredible and game-changing. Based on their trailers, Kara, Marcus, and Connor all felt like fresh and original characters, each fighting their own battles for their own reasons. Kara wanted to find herself and know what it means to be alive. Connor was struggling with life and death conflicts and not being able to have the emotions to understand the situation he's in. And Marcus is struggling for the freedom of all androids but is torn between the decision to be peaceful and violent. Those were all from the reveal trailers from the game, but the trailers started coming out in 2015. So how much did these messages hold up? The story of the game is something hard to talk about because all three characters go through three very different stories that all vaguely revolve around each other. Connor is an android who is assigned to the police force to help investigate the increasing amount of deviant androids. Kara is an android who became a deviant after seeing a father abuse his daughter and is trying to protect the daughter the best she can. And Marcus is a deviant who is trying to attain freedom for his people under any circumstance. They all have the common theme of android deviancy, but aside from that, not much else. As a disclaimer, I've never played a Quantic Dream game before, so I don't know how similar this is compared to other games Quantic have put out, but these writers know how to write a story. While I will try to avoid spoiling anything, this game gives you some harsh choices that have some harsh repercussions. Even in the trailers, they showed us the vast differences between each action you could take, and that there seemed to be more bad choices than good ones. The feeling from these trailers was beautifully carried over into the actual game, and making these impossible decisions absolutely ruined me. That being said, I by no means think that this game was perfect in regards to molding the story. This game shares a problem that most other games that give you multiple dialogue options suffer from, or the option you pick isn't exactly the dialogue line that gets said. I remember one time playing as Connor, I was trying to connect with the partner the police force had assigned me, and we had gotten into a disagreement. I chose a dialogue option determined, thinking that it would say something along the lines of determined to understand him. Instead, I belittled him and essentially said, "I have to do a job and cannot afford to wait around for you." My partner got very mad at me. This isn't the biggest problem in the world, because you can only do so much on screen when you have a limited amount of time to answer these questions, but it still irks me. However, I did have much bigger issues with the controls and the pacing of the game. I've only played the game on experienced difficulty. Maybe if I played it on casual I wouldn't complain about the controls as much, but I shouldn't be forced to play on an easier difficulty to enjoy my game. The controls were initially what you'd expect from a QuickTime event-based game. You have the four main buttons, X, circle, square, and triangle, then you have the triggers and bumpers. However, the most used control in the game involves moving the right thumbstick, which you also use to move the camera. So unless your camera is completely still, you will accidentally move the camera again instead of performing the action you were trying to do. While this isn't necessarily the biggest issue, and even just having that a little during QuickTime events isn't the worst thing in the world, but when I have 1 second to react and the game wants me to go up into a left semicircle with the right thumbstick, that demands perfect precision. It gets annoying. I've failed maybe 4 or 5 of those because I was slightly off when moving the stick. I'd be lying however I said that that was the most annoying control. The game also has controls involving tapping and swiping at the touchpad and tilting and shaking the actual controller. While these aren't used too much during Connor or Kara's stories, they are heavily implemented in Marcus's story. Even with these controls, it is hard to downplay just what an incredible story this game tells. Every character feels genuine and unique, and you are forced to make some morally questionable decisions that genuinely made me anxious to the point where I needed to take a second to collect myself. From beginning to end, all three stories captivated me and hooked me in, even though the game's poor pacing made the middle of the game a bit rough. While Connor and Marcus were struggling with serious problems where every situation could be life or death, and you need to do everything absolutely perfectly, Kara was just trying to find shelter in the middle of an abandoned amusement park. It just felt bad to keep transitioning between the three characters. Not to mention for a majority of the game, the three stories had absolutely nothing to do with each other, so any immersion you had with one story was lost when you transitioned into another. I stand by my earlier statement that all three stories and all three characters were unbelievably great, but the stories had nothing in common, swapping from Connor to Kara to Marcus then back to Connor, and it was rough and constantly ruined the immersion that I had. All in all, I think that Detroit is a very good game. Despite the problems that I had while playing, at the end of the day I thoroughly enjoyed my experience playing it. I wouldn't call it one of the best games I've played, or even one of the best games this year, but it was a damn good game. However, it does feel like a game that is better suited to watch somebody else playing it instead of playing it yourself. This is definitely not a must-buy game by any means, but if you do decide to buy it, you will not be disappointed. Taking all things into consideration, I give Detroit Become Human a 7 out of 10. It's definitely a game I'm looking forward to platinuming and seeing the different endings for.